Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuck with Queen Bee Creations. Thanks for joining me today. Last year, I was into blue pumpkins, kind of like a rich kind of deep aqua. Well, no, they weren't. They were kind of a deeper blue. I was into blue pumpkins. This year, I got these from the dollar store, and I want to do a little threesome, right? But I want them to be sort of stone. I want them to be, well, I can't just have orange pumpkins, but I can't. And so I'm gonna want to do these up with some texture and kind of in a stones, kind of cement finish. I did make cement pumpkins one year, super cute little guys, but I just want some light decorative ones. I don't want this size in cement because they're just heavy and I just don't wanna. But before I get started painting them, I want them to have a little bit more detail. So what I do have is my air dried clay from IOD, and I have some molds. So what I'm thinking is, the new Hello Pumpkin mold from IOD has some great pumpkin leaves. I'm gonna do those on the little one, but I'm gonna do other molds on the other ones because I can, because why not? So I'm going to do some decorative kind of filigree ones and, just like from Acanthus and just, you know what? I'm just taking any molds and I am going to add them on. I'm going to mold them out with my clay. I have a little bit here left and then I have a new pack to open up. I think your cornstarch. No, your baby powder. Baby powder works too. But here's some cornstarch. And I'm just gonna grab a brush and I'm going to put some cornstarch into my molds that I'm going to use just to help them release. Okay, so there's no other purpose for it beyond it just helps them be able to release. And once I have these, now you could do a casting resin with this if you wanted. So, as much as I'm doing the clay, you could do the resin. Totally up to you. It's all the same. Yeah, and these ones, why not? And then I'm going to add my wood glue to the back of the molds and then attach them to the pumpkins. I'm gonna leave them overnight to dry. So that's all the magic that's happening now. The real magic happens with the painting process, right? Creating the effects that we want. Take our clay, push it into the mold right up against that rim, and we can use that rim to kind of almost cut our clay off to create a nice crisp edge so that we don't have kind of a rough looking molded item. It's going to look nice and crisp. And you could see already that was wanting to pop out. So I can actually just pull it out like this. And as I get them ready, I'm just going to kind of lay them into position so that as they start to dry a bit, they're just drying in the shape that I need before I glue them. Our pumpkin molds are dry. So this is what we've got on this one. We've got some leaves on the little guy, and we've got a little bit more scroll work on this guy. So first step, let's move this out, is I want to create a textured mix. Now you could use salt wash for this. You could use the Fusion Fresco powder for this. You could use baby powder, or you could use baking soda. And I just have a lot of baking soda. So what I want is to start with a dark gray. So I have Weathered Wood by DIY. Now, I'm gonna mix this up in the can because I don't have very much in here. So I have, I would say, here, I got a gold pen. I have that much paint. Can you see my gold line? I only have that much paint in there, so I'd probably be taking it out. It's fairly thick right now because it's the bottom. DIY is typically thick. I want it thinned down a bit because my baking soda is going to thicken it up, right? We're creating some texture here, so because it's already really thick. And you can start adding your baking soda to get the texture you want, and then add water as you need to as well. I have a big container. You can tell I do this often, right? I would like to say that's the reason, but it's because my husband saw this container when I asked him to pick me up some baking soda, and I didn't know it came smaller, which I don't quite understand considering I bake in front of him and I have smaller containers, but it's just the level of awareness, right? Never needed to know. That's how it goes. All right. So what I've got is this right now. And I want to just keep adding this till I get a consistency that works for me. And the consistency is going to vary depending upon the project that you're doing. If you want to use this with like a trowel to smear onto a piece to create a little bit more of that kind of that Italian fresco look, that textured plastered look, you're going to want it thicker. We want this to have kind of a stipple effect, right? So I need it to be thick enough to stand in kind of small peaks. I don't want it to be so stiff that they're massive. So still more. And then I will keep this if I have leftover for the next time I do this kind of thing. And you can do this with any color. So right now I'm up at about here. This is increasing the volume that I've got. So I'm gonna have more than I need for this project. It grows in volume. Okay. And you end up, there'll be lumps in here. Like, don't think that you have to. It's not like a cake batter. You can have lumps in this. It's okay, right? So I just need it a tinge thicker. I'm thinking just to hold those little peaks a bit. So, you know, you can see where if you're going to do kind of textured stuff often, that big one isn't a bad purchase at all. Okay. So now that I've got it mixed up, and I'm thinking this is good, it'll start to thicken more as it sits. And as it does that, I can go and add more texture. I just don't want it to be so thick that I lose some of the definition of this stuff here. But I'm going to apply it in a stippling motion. I'm not going to paint and drag it. So I want to get some of those textures because I'm going to be layering colors on top of this. And so I want to have some of this original color showing, and I want to have some of that happening. Now we're gonna have to layer this, obviously, because we've got a really bright orange that we're covering up here. And so I may end up doing 2 coats of the dark gray, so I have a solid base and foundation before I start adding any of my other colors. But this is what I'm going to be doing. Now, what I will do is as I finish the pumpkins, I will just stand them upright, if it will stand upright. Maybe I have to go the other way. This doesn't have a very big base. So yeah, so I will stand them upright to dry this way because the whole thing's going to be wet. It's going to leave a little bit of a mark here, but that hits the base, and I'm not going to agonize over that. It just makes my life easier to at least get the whole thing done at once. Okay, the pumpkins are mostly dry. You can see, not quite, but good enough, good enough. So the idea with this, to be able to start getting into a bit of a stone look, we started with the darkest color, is go dark to light. So, you know, I've got some fusion colors. You could do it all in, you know, all in DIY, all in, I'm just going with what's open because it really doesn't matter. So I have, this happens to be, what are you? Soapstone from Fusion. And because it's got the built-in all-in-one, I keep plastic on it to make my life easier. I have an old ratty chip brush, and you're gonna see me dabbing over here because I just wanna start dabbing it. And I don't want it too wet, so I don't want a big heavy blotch. And I like having the uneven bristles so that I don't get a smooth finish or a smooth texture on it. I just want it. It's gonna look kind of speckled to start with, but then we're adding more stuff to it. We're adding more colors. So we're just starting to create that mottled, uneven look of stone. And I'm thinking I may even dig out this little bronze metallic that I have, that it's not very metallic, but we're gonna do this all over all of them, right? So you can see the kind of the two-tone effect. And virtually, because there's so little paint, as soon as I'm done all three of them with this color, then I can go into the next color. And I'm going into Newell, which is kind of a green gray, and I've got Pebble, which is a lighter gray. And you just get to start building up the color tones and the looks, and just, we're creating more texture. But you know, if you ever look at like a stone, it's never just one shade. It's got all these different different shades and tones in it, and it's all like small little dots of color almost, right? That are on there. And that's sort of what we're after with it. So that from a distance, it looks like one color, but close up, you see all these little speckles, almost like it's a million little stones all pressed in together. Okay, I'm gonna carry on and get this color on all of it. And you see it all starts to kind of fade in. And then, you know, get it on all three of the pumpkins, and then we'll carry on for the next color. Okay, so I got out the bronze. Now this is a metallic accent paint from Rust-Oleum, and this is, well, getting very thick, actually. Getting very thick. So I'm just going to lay some of that down on my table, right along where the gray is. I'm using the same brush. So, and I just want this to be light anyway, so it's okay that it kind of mixes in with the bronze. And this one, I'm gonna put, and I'm gonna see how it looks, because I may end up finishing with this one too. And I'm thinking that I just wanna use it a little bit more on some of the detail areas. So not an all over color, just adding a little bit of that brownish, bronzy tone on some of those details, which I'm quite liking, but I'm thinking it might end up getting lost a little bit when I add the other colors, in which case I'll pull it out again and do more. So just a little bit in the creases, a little bit on top. I don't know if you can kind of see the difference if the camera's picking it up. It starts to darken it a little bit. So all of this is kind of subtle. It's the, what is it? What's the finish like? What does it look like as we get it taken as a whole is more what we're concerned about. Next color, taking it up, lightening it up a little bit, is Newell. Oh, this one really started to seal in there. All right, I'm gonna need new plastic on this one. All right, so Newell is kind of in the green family. And it's definitely getting a little bit lighter. So this one I definitely want to take a little bit drier and again, just kind of do all over, but you know, I'm still using that grungy brush because I want it to be all uneven. And you can see that I switch the direction of the brush every so often too, so that all my lines don't go all in one direction, and I'm able to get up in the crevices, in the grooves, and on top of them, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I'm gonna do this color all over top again of everything, just lightening it up. But, you know, it's cool. We're getting all those shades popping up through there. It looks all kind of rough and mottled and aged and perfect. This next coat is Pebble, which is our lightest gray color. So this is the lightest that I'm likely to take it. And again, I'm gonna kind of go all over again. This all starts to just kind of blend in. When you first put it on, you know, they look fairly distinct, and then as they start to dry, they all just kind of start to merge again. So you're just creating these light little layers, but you know, when you look at it up close, I can still see some of that first dark gray. I can still see little bits of that bronze poking through. They just all start to blend in and create this kind of stone effect. And I think that's all I need of that. The last little thing that I want to do on these before I let them dry thoroughly, I'm going to let them dry overnight, and tomorrow we can come back and seal them, is I want to add just a touch of green. So much the same as, you know, if you had a, you know, you had a stone figurine sitting out in your garden, it's going to start to get a little bit of that green patina on it, right? Where maybe some lichen has started to grow, just that kind of look. So very often I will use Gypsy Green by DIY. I happen to have some Bayberry by Fusion Open, which is very much the same kind of color. So I have a much smaller brush for this because I'm going to be looking at kind of adding it more in some of the detailed areas, right? Can you see on this one, there's just a little bit of green around the edges, none on there. So it's just like it's starting to grow, but with this, I'll get to kind of highlight some of that molding a little bit. We'll do that a little bit more after we add our wax on tomorrow as well. And I'm not looking for this to be huge. I want it fairly subtle, but we're just adding it a little bit here and there. So use it very judiciously. We don't want to paint, you know, just our trim green and making it look like we're painting the leaves. I mean, that's not what we're doing. We're highlighting a little bit of those molds right now, but I will as well sweep it down some of those curves and in the under sections a little bit as well, so that I'm adding just a little bit of that aged green tone in other places also. All that we have left to do on our little pumpkins is to seal them. Now, I'm just going to be using these indoors, so I am just using a clear wax. Quite honestly, you don't even necessarily have to seal them if you're using them inside, just because a lot of those final coats that we used are were all-in-one paints. So, you know, everything's adhered. If you're not planning on getting them wet, then it's not going to be an issue. But you know what? Better safe than sorry. Because I've done this all in the gray tones, I am going to use black wax as opposed to a dark wax. Dark wax is brown, and the black wax, of course, is black, very black. So I'm going to be dipping into my clear wax first, and then I just have a little bit of black wax over on the side. And all that I wanted to do was just kind of add it in a little bit around those edges, take the brush that I'd used for the clear, and just kind of soften any of those lines out. In essence, I'm just kind of adding a little bit of shadowing. So let me get around this leaf and then see if you can see what I'm talking about. My wax, my clear wax is still wet on the pumpkin. So I haven't, it just got added. I didn't leave it overnight to dry at all. But you can see here, it just makes that leaf stand out a little bit more so than like these leaves. So I'm just gonna add that little bit of detailing, and even if nobody else knows it's there, I know it's there. Okay, here are our finished pumpkins. So this little trio is gonna look so great, especially having some raised up and with some fall leaves. But look at the details that we get. It looks like stone or kind of a concrete. There's lots of texture in there, and we've got that play of subtle colors. It looks way more realistic than doing just one straight, simple color or just whitewashing over it. I mean, it just looks awesome. They look weathered, they look aged. It's a terrific technique. And as much as we did it over bright orange pumpkins, you can do that same finish, that same look over anything. If you've got an old vase that you want to create kind of a stone look picture on, or candlesticks, or pedestals, or a lamp, anything, this same technique is going to work. I mean, if it transforms a bright orange pumpkin into looking like it is heavy concrete and heavy stone, it'll do that for anything. I hope that you enjoyed this one. I hope you give it a try. I think that this is a cool look for fall, right? And certainly these are going to mix in really well, even with some of your regular fall foliage. Let me know what you think of this one, guys, and I definitely look forward to seeing you on the next one. Until then, take care.